Brandon Aiyuk's appearance on the SF Niners podcast, Brad at the SF Niners, who does a ton, just is a social juggernaut when it comes to Niners content. And Aiyuk was just hanging with a bucket hat on, chilling on his couch.
I think that's his hoodie.
Oh, it's a hoodie. A lot of guys wearing bucket hats at the Pro Bowl, and including Devontae. It looks sweet.
Football teams love handing out bucket hats at events, whether it's training camp or whether it's Pro Bowl. It's just a long-standing, like, you get a bucket hat with AFC, NFC, or your team logo.
The white hat with the NFC or AFC logo was a good look. Aiyuk said they talk about them being a good defense. The question was not like, because you guys have smacked the Eagles. It was just, what do you think of the Super Bowl? He said they talk about them being a good defense. I'm not sure. I think KC pass game will be able to expose what we thought we would expose. So the question is Aiyuk just giving unbiased insight and analysis, or is this sour grapes?
This is my whole thing, Guy. And he's doing this after the fact, so it doesn't bother me. Kittle kind of did it before the fact. You can't, like, the majority of the guys on the Niners, Aiyuk, Kittle, Juszczyk, or let's just pick the offense, Trent, they can say whatever they want, because no matter what, like, we can take the field at any moment and I can get open on Darius Slay. Trent Williams, I can block whoever. But part of the reason the game was ruined is because Burford and McGlinchey and Croft can't. So you can't act like this all in my. This is not. I'm not Roger Federer walking into Wimbledon like I'm beating everyone's ass. You do have, like, Brandon, for you to get open, you do need McGlinchey and Burford to hold the fucking point of attack, and they can against this team. So I do understand the Eagles going, because you look back at the Niners a couple years ago when they made the Super Bowl run. I would say Fred was not Fred then, and Greenlaw definitely was not Greenlaw then. But their front four was elite. Rookie Bosa was one of the better rookie pass rushers we've seen. Buckner in the peak of his powers, Armstead having a breakout year, and D Ford was still passable. And then they had solid backups. Richard was an all-pro, but no one threw at him. So it's like their pass rush was relentless. To me, the Eagles, their back seven is nothing to write home about. Darius Slay is by far the best of the group. But their pass rush is elite. Didn't you give me the stat before the Cowboy game? Like, Cowboys were second. They were one in pressure rate all throughout the season. That doesn't just encompass Reddick. It encompasses the whole group. So it's like they have a massive advantage. And are they the fucking 2000 Ravens? Of course not. But their pass rush is the best in the league, top to bottom. Bosa might be the best individual pass rusher, but they have more of them. Like, part of the Niners' problem was, like, where's his help? So I'd argue that, like, I get it. I get it from my Aiyuk standpoint. But it's a team game. It just is, Yeah,
protection is part of the pass game.
Yeah. And they fucking got killed.
But they protected Brock well enough previously. I understand why they felt that way going in.
But now, barely they were holding on for dear life against the Cowboys.
I know. And now you're playing the Eagles. It's the same. It should have been the same problem. There's no guarantee that if Brock doesn't get hit on the play he got hurt on, he doesn't get hurt on the next play.
But even if he's not getting hurt, he might have been getting chased for his life throughout the game.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. But I do understand, like, a buddy of mine, Ed Sfida, who's a big Eagles fan, lives in Philly, texted me today. He's like, he was like, Niners, shameful. He was very offended. And I said, well, look, I know you're going to think that I'm being some sort of homer here, even though I'm not, because he sent me this John Lynch quote. He's like, John Lynch said, with all due respect, we'd love to have played in a real game or something like that. And I'm like, look, you would be saying the same thing. I don't think there's any doubt that the Eagles could have won a game where both teams were full strength. They were favored to begin with. So absolutely. But I also understand where Aiyuk's coming from. Like, hey, I'm just telling you what I see, and I think the Chiefs are going to be able to take advantage. Now, the flip side would be, well, we got a high ankle sprain on Pat Mahomes. We don't know if, like, McCole Hardman out, like Juju out, like, who's going to be healthy.
So Kelsey's had a bad back. I mean,
there's more to the game than just that. I get it. But I would say this. It's really hard to, I think there is sour grapes, but I don't think the sour grapes are the Eagles sucked and they didn't deserve it. I think the sour grapes is, and I can understand it, we just didn't even get a chance to prove what we thought. Like, you would just want to know, you could say, I know I can hit Nolan Ryan, then you step in the box, he strikes you out 3 times. You just have an answer. You just know. You don't want to get hit by him in the ribcage the first time, break your ribs, go to the hospital, you never get to face him, and no one ever knows whether or not you could have gotten a hit off.
Well, here's what I would say. This team was better than last year. And ultimately, the reason to me you lost last year in the NFC Championship was because your quarterback's high end passing the ball was not good enough. He was banged up, whatever. You put that team against last year's Rams team, I think the Niners win because Vaughn was coming on, but
this year's Niners team against.
Yeah, I'm saying this year's Niners team with this Purdy, I feel much better. The problem is though, this year's Niner team against this Eagles team, like whether it happened on the 6th play of the game or whether it happened, he doesn't get hurt, but he's kind of running around for his life. It was going to be clearly a major mismatch on that right side of just a relentless amount of. If I told you that on the flip side, you were playing a similar situation with in the NFC Championship game, a team that's offensive line is not good on one side, you'd be like, a fucking Niners are going to eat them alive with Bosa. And that's what I don't know this, like I know Gannon, but I got a pretty good idea that they had a mark on that right side of the offensive line.
Sure.
And you got to move Kittle around just in general. And he's got to, obviously, Kittle's exploded as a pass catcher with Purdy. So he's not just going to stay in all the time like he kind of did at points last year. So it's going to expose McGlinchey and Burford, who, ultimately a lot of teams have up and down interior offensive line play, but it was going to be tough.
Well, sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah, I just think that that's an element of. I get where all these guys, all the good players are coming from. Like, I could have fucking handled. I know you can. No one's disputing, George, that you can fucking handle these guys. Or you get open. Or use check. Half of them aren't saying it. Or Debo. But there's a reason McGlinchey hasn't said shit. Or Burford. No one's asking them. But, like, they're at a disadvantage, guys.
The flip side would be Nick Bosa hurts Jalen Hurts on the first series, and the Eagles go, we never got a shot to play the game. And I'd say, you're right? And I think this is what the Eagles would say to Aiyuk. But part of it is you were going to have to block Nick Bosa for 4 quarters. And if you just watch that drive again, as most people have, or actually I feel like a lot of people haven't, the Niners were throwing
it's hard to even bring up the game, guy.
I know. They were throwing all kinds of shit at Hassan Reddick. It wasn't just McGlinchey. It was Banks. It was Juszczyk. It was Croft, right? They tried to block Reddick 4 different ways on the first drive. So they knew, like, we're kind of playing with fire here. We got to survive this game, and we got to try and throw some curveballs at this guy.
But I would say we're just talking about, and that with the Niners for the most part as a pass rusher, Ebekam's had some moments, and honestly, their pass rush kind of got worse as the season went on.
Yeah, Ebekam, I'd say, had some moments, and that's about as far as you would.
Yeah, Amenahu, had a couple moments against Seattle.
He was better than.
But you can say just Hassan Reddick, who obviously is their best pass rusher. Hargraves is excellent. Sweat's really good. Like, Brandon Graham off the bench. Like, Fletcher Cox a little longer in the tooth, but still a Hall of Fame level guy. Not now, but I'm just saying, like, he'd give you 5 or 6 really good rushes throughout the game. It was just going to be hard with the whole group of them. Remember back in the day, the 19 team with the Niners, it was like you might have a quarter, but eventually they just kind of overwhelmed you. And that to me is an offseason plan with the 49ers. One, Drake Jackson's got to be an impact player, and they got to find a way to get a little help around Nick. We saw this forever around with Khalil on the Raiders. Like, once you get to a certain spot, do I have enough help around me? Because if I do, it's fucking on like Donkey Kong. If the Niners get a couple high-end guys, not even Pro Bowl level guys, but just high-end starters around Nick Bosa, they're an unstoppable team. Because the difference of them and the Eagles is, like, they have elite linebackers.
If Drake Jackson turns into a good player, and there's still a big question, right? He's got to get through a season. He ran out of gas this year, but
just become like I'm trying to see how many sacks.
Who?
Like Josh Sweat this year for the Eagles, who they drafted, I think, in like the 3rd round, like 4 years ago. They extended, had 11 sacks. I don't think Josh Sweat is ever going to be viewed as like first or even second tier. But if that is like your second banana, if I can just get that 9 to like 12 sack range, and like the advanced analytic would people say, sacks can be a little overrated. I bet his pressure rate's high. If that's coming off the other side, that's what the Eagles had that the Niners lacked. Now, where the Niners have is Ward is probably a better, him and Slay are pretty even. The linebacking play is not close. The Niners defense as a whole is better, but their pass rush is better. It just is. Their D-line play is just better.
Higher ceiling on their pass rush.
Yeah.